Hey there everybody, I am Scott and welcome on Into My Time Machine. Well, we are halfway through the series Dune Prophecy and I have predictions for the next 3 episodes. This is also a very special week for lovers of the 1984 Dune movie. I'll tell you all about that, but I'll begin with a recap and review. And if you've already seen episode 3, then just follow that chapter along and head over to the predictions section. You know how in Sex and the City where they say that New York is actually one of the characters? Well, I feel like the flashback is a main character in Dune Prophecy because boy do they love themselves a good flashback, and that is very prevalent in episode 3. Now we do get to see a lot of young Valia in this episode and her using the voice a few times. One time in particular, she uses it on her mom. And then we also see her showing her fellow student sisters how she uses the voice. So it becomes very clear that Valia is the one who originated the voice and is probably the one who teaches the Bene Gesserit how to use it. In another flashback, we see young Valia finally undergoing the agony, and in true young Valia fashion, she makes a big old scene before she actually does it, but she does do it. I really feel like they go a little bit above and beyond to show how strong-willed and determined young Valia is. I find young Valia super annoying. We meet young Valia and Tula's brother in this episode, and I guess I could go on and on about the little parts of his storyline, but all you really need to know is that he's murdered by an Atreides. And of course, this further cements Valia's hatred for that house. Now let's talk about a young Tula and what we learned about her in her series of flashbacks. Actually, one of her flashbacks is set up in a quite nice backdrop. It's a forest, and she's with her boyfriend and his family. They're in the forest for some sort of hunt. Now her boyfriend's name is Ori, and actually in this episode, he asks her to marry him. So you're probably thinking we're finally going to get a little bit of a love story, and that's certainly what it appears to be, because after he asks him to marry her, they have this beautiful night of passion. And then they wake up the next morning after this wonderful night, and Ori finds out that Tula has murdered his entire family. Whoa. And does she spare him? Absolutely not. She gives him a nice little shot to the neck, and he's gone too. What could have happened to our wonderful and sweet Tula, you might be thinking? Well, of course, it's revealed that Ori and his whole family were Atreides, so this was their way of getting back at the Atreides again, and a big way of getting back at the Atreides, so win-win for the Harkonnens, right? Finally, the other reveal that we learn about is that the thinking machines that are banned are actually behind the DNA database that we are hearing so much about. Got it. Okay, so what's rad and what's bad about this episode? Well, what's rad is the young actress who plays the young Tula. I think she's fabulous. She is a standout superstar. She kind of reminds me of Jennifer Connelly from like the 80s and 90s when she was in The Labyrinth and The Rocketeer. Just love her. And I think her acting and even her character is such a nice balance to the constant whining and, I believe, overacting of the young Valia. What's bad about this episode? That's easy. It is the constant flashbacks. I get that we're trying to get some character development here and we need to go back in time to maybe learn a little bit more about them, but geez, please be kind and limit some of the rewinds. Before I give you my predictions, and trust me, my predictions are good, and before I rate this episode 1 to 5 sandworms, please indulge the 1984 Dune movie nerd in me and let me have this little moment. So Dune 1984, the movie, actually premiered 40 years ago this week on December 3rd. Can you believe that? December 3rd, 1984. That's when this Dune 1984 movie came out. That blows my mind. It also debuted at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. Well, I live here in Washington, D.C. I go to the Kennedy Center a couple times a year. I'm actually going there in a couple of weeks for a holiday show, and I never knew this about the Dune movie. So I know that the next time I'm there in a couple of weeks, all I'll be able to imagine is Kyle MacLachlan, a young Kyle MacLachlan, and David Lynch walking the theater, and what a magical night that must have been 40 years ago this week. Okay, we're halfway through this series. I have predictions. Let's talk about this quote that keeps coming up over and over again. The key to the reckoning is one born twice, once in blood, one in spice. I think that's the quote, but if it's not, that's the gist of it. Well, we are supposed to think that that is Desmond Hart, and I even think that Mother Superior Valia says that once or twice. She makes that connection, but it's not. It's Lila. Oh yeah, Lila is not dead. She is actually being kept alive by, get this, computers and spice, and this is all in secret. So I have a prediction slash theory on Desmond Hart as well. So when young Tula murdered her boyfriend and his family, she actually let one boy go, and I think that boy is actually grown up and is Desmond Hart. And he, of course, is secretly an Atreides. Now, this prediction is a stretch, but hear me out. I think that Kieran Atreides, remember that hunky swordsman from the last episode and the first episode? Well, I believe that he is the love child of young Tula and the man she murdered, Ori Atreides. Now, I have nothing to kind of piece that together, but I assume if that is the case, some things will come together in future episodes, so only time will tell. Okay, let's rate this episode 1 to 5 sandworms, 5 sandworms being the absolute best. I give this episode a 3 minus. The minus. Okay, it was a better episode than the last two, I believe. But I so expected to love this series so much more than I do at this point. I've actually already decided that if in episode 4, my socks are not just blown off by everything that happens, I am going to stop watching on Sunday nights. I'm just going to watch them whenever the heck I want. Right now, I am knee-deep in Wolf Hall, and that should be taking priority over this series for sure. Thank you so much for watching this review and my predictions. If you have predictions for the rest of the series, please let me know in the comments down below. Stay right here on my channel. I've got plenty more stuff. They're all retro recipes and reviews that I think you'll just love. Remember, you are always welcome in my time machine.